This episode is about feathering selections. When you want to make a feathered selection, which means a selection that doesn't have hard edges, which is especially good for soft selections that you want to blend in, there are two ways to go about it. First of all, you're going to get on your selection tool. In this case, I'm picking the the quick selection tool and making sure, of course, that it is the right size. There are two ways, like I said. If you're making a clean selection for the first time in a new document and moving it to a new background, which is this beautiful sunset, you can simply pick up your quick selection tool, go straight to select and mask, and when it's on this setting right here, and basically the difference is if you had a whole bunch of layers here in this document, you'd want to turn them all off so you were only looking at the layer you were working on. And then while you're here, you'll see I have to adjust my selection tool again. You're going to go ahead and select the area that you want to feather. Just like a normal selection tool, it can be a pain in the butt. So you're going to come in and get rid of the stuff that you don't want to select, and basically I'm just going to select, actually maybe I'll just select his hair, because hair is one of those things that you want to be soft. Make this a little bit smaller this time. See if I can just get his hair. Perfect. Subtract that little sliver that showed up. Great. So I've got his hair selected. Then you're coming over here in the properties area, and you can take this feather and move it up. Now, the preview needs a minute to adjust. So as you move this up, if you're going like this, actually that reflected pretty good, but you do need to give it a little bit of time. The more you feather, the softer this edge is going to be. When you say OK, if there was a lot of stuff under this, it might not show. In this case, it sure did. So when you say Command J now, you could put that on its own layer. In this case, it just moved the mask. That's fine. Now I'm going to drag this over to my new background, and on my background I now have this floating bit of hair that I can put into the background and move around, as if that makes sense, and it's blended right in. Okay, now the other way of doing this, and I'm going to just throw this layer right away so that it's not distracting for a minute. The other way is, let's say, gotta find my picture, it's hiding. He always hides. Where are you, little boy? I gotta find him. There he is. Okay, let's say, let me bring Photoshop back. With my history palette, I go back to where he's sized and ready. And this time, let's say that I wasn't thinking ahead and I brought a selection over of his whole body. And I was not thinking ahead. And you know what? I'm just going to let it, okay, that's too much. I was just going to let it bring his shoulder, because it's annoying how it always does that. But we'll bring a little bit more. Okay, so then we Command J that, and I'm thinking I'm all cool and stuff. I bring it over and I'm like, oh man, that looks horrible. I want it to feather into the sky, and that's not working for me. So in this case, you could switch to your selection tool, then you could go to select and mask, and this time you're going to select which area you want to feather, which of course selected his whole head, and then I'm taking that back away, and you can see that there's a difference between his hair and his face. Some of these buttons will help you see that. See, like if you turn up the transparency, you can see the difference between the hair and the body, so you know you're selecting the hair. Then you can come down to the feather and do basically the same thing. Say OK, and it has created the mask kind of in the opposite way. Okay, so that's how you make feathered selections. Now you could see that actually it's gone from my history, but you can see that the other way is really probably a preferable way of doing it, but if you get something over here and you want to soften it, you can still do it this way. So there's two ways to create a feathered selection.